Good morning. Bit of an awkward angle today. I didn't know quite how to get this beast in there. Today I'm inquiring about 369. For those who don't know what that is, it was something Nikola Tesla discovered that he ended up calling vortex math. As you can kind of see on the board behind me. So people tend to use it as a way to manifest. Now, I've discovered that because I was also interested in the path of manifesting. So anyone who does that tends to come across Nikola Tesla and this 369 method that he has. Well, if you believe in angelic numbers, it's kind of the same thing. The repetition of the single digits that form a pattern. It's kind of follow along here. So I used to say think in terms of frequencies, not solid mass. People thought he was pretty eccentric because he would do stuff like he would walk around a building 3 times before he entered it. Why? Just cause. They thought he was bat crap crazy. But he did habits like that. Or for instance, he would make sure certain numbers added up or blah 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 blah, and he would actually purposely, like, say he's at the counter buying groceries or something and it adds up to a number he doesn't like, he tosses something else in there to add up to the correct number or a number he prefers. We won't go into detail why. I actually have like 4 pages worth of notes, so let's see if this all fits in an hour. Well, the theme is 3. So I kind of go back to the rule of 3s that I was talking about in a previous video. We've noticed the pattern of 3s within our reality, such as Jesus, the Holy Spirit, God. Matter, antimatter, dark matter. Body, spirit, mind. Animal kingdom, human kingdom, Devic kingdom. X, Y, Z. Okay, so now we got the rule of 3s out of the way. In fact, I'm pretty sure, don't quote me on this because I'm not a mathematician. Actually, I don't have any PhDs. So, everything I say, take it with a grain of salt. But I'm pretty sure pi, Pi, is what they said the universe is quantified. That's like the actual number of the universe. Well, everyone represents it as 3.14, but that's because guess what? It's 3 repeating. 3.33 indefinitely. So you're saying you can quantify the universe down to a bunch of 3s. I really hope this is making sense. So, you're like, alright, well, I definitely see this pattern here. I see what you're talking about. However, I can't seem to find this information anywhere. Or maybe I'm just not looking, I don't know. But I wanted to go deeper into it and actually, why? Why does this work? How does this work? I'm naturally inquisitive and curious. Because then you got like, one of the things people use as a manifestation trick is writing it down. 3 times, 6 times, then 9 times. And you do that 3 times a day. In the morning, in the afternoon, in the night. Well, I wasn't able to keep up with it because, human life. Who has time to sit there and write things 9 times? Especially when it's like a sentence. I just couldn't keep up with it. I didn't keep up with it. Whether I could or I couldn't. So I'm like, alright. But the rules still apply. Those are still universal laws. So if I can't apply it in that method, how else can I apply it? Well, I have yet to start running around buildings. I'm getting pretty close though. However, I'm going to expand on it and say why, in my mind, this works. You get, and this is where we need the whiteboard, you get 2 sets of numbers, typically. I mean, of course, there's decimals and negatives and shit like that, but you get whole numbers, odds and evens. You ready? Whole numbers, 1, odds and evens, and that's anyways. So odds, think of it in terms of push. And some of this, like I said, I can't explain. It was just a download, I suppose. Again, I was inquiring about more information on Nikola Tesla's stuff, and this is stuff I actually couldn't find in a video anywhere, so I'm going to put it in mine. So one is push. Imagine it like energy. You got a node, something that generates energy. One. And it pushes, it emits, like Wi-Fi signal or a person. You have a auric field. You have a Wi-Fi box that emits one signal. Possibly two, but that kind of derails my... Anyways. So you have one device emitting a signal. Well, then you got two. So now you have a Wi-Fi router and a modem. Now they bounce the signal between each other. Now you have two. Same thing with people. You have two people, and now you have energy reciprocation. I am sitting there pushing my energy out, and very possibly, let's just pretend in terms of science and math, that other person is receiving my energy and giving me energy back. So now we actually have a flow. However, it doesn't suffice enough. Yes, technically 2 means balanced. 2 is a complete equation. However, as we've noticed in old light bulbs, there was 2 sockets. 2 sockets with a wire tied between them. Those light bulbs burn the hell out really fast. So then we ended up upgrading to LEDs. But the point is, 2 is great, but it fries. So then you move up to 3, and now you got that extra node, that extra, what do you call it, a capacitor, to regulate or increase the capacity of the flow of energy. Because now it goes into, I forgot to write it on the board, but you get 1, the rise of the energy, 2, which is the peak of the energy, and then 3, the fall, the rest of the energy. And then it goes back into 1. That is why 3 works better than 2. 2, there's no break. It's just constant blah, 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 blah. You know, just constant energy. But then once you hit that soft spot of 3, you're like, alright, well that's a perfect number now. It's a perfect pattern. 3 can continue without getting burnt out. Why? Because it has a rest period. So adding that extra capacitor allows for rest of the energy. So 3 ends up becoming the best number. Why? Are you ready for this? We also live in the 3rd dimension. There's 12 dimensions. Okay? 3rd dimension. X, Y, Z. So it is the actual key frequency of the universe, the signature frequency itself. It's not just some random ass made up number. It's the frequency of what we live on. Okay? Yes, once you move into the 4th dimension, all these rules go out the effing window. Because the barriers tend to lessen, or there are no barriers. But that's another video. So the reason I was saying is push and pull. So you got the frequency wave, which I don't know big terms. It's a frequency wave. Kind of think of it like the ocean. The same thing. Same ebb and flow. You got your starting point, wherever that may be, in infinity, because there is no starting. Anyways. So you got go up. That's the rise in action. That's the odd numbers. 1, 3, 5, so on. That's the emission, that is the rise, the buildup of energy. Then you got the trough of the frequency. That is the even number, the rest, the take a break. Now, I mean, technically, yes, I just got saying there is rest in number 3, but just follow. Every pattern has its own frequency of rest. That's why after 3, it begins to actually work. So patterns within patterns. I know some of what I'm saying is self-contradicting, but I'm going to try to make it make sense the best I can. So you hit down, and then you hit the even numbers, which are the rest, the balanced, the more structured in my mind, because it's like, you know, some symmetry. Symmetry holds a specific frequency. So you get 2, and then it gets mirrored into 4. So, even though 3 is the law of the universe, or this dimension, the even numbers tend to be a little more stable, in my mind. That's why it's more restful. It's a lot easier to rest on a square than on a triangle. I know that doesn't make any sense, but it makes sense in my head. Sorry. That is still incredibly hot. So now we go up the charts. So now 369 was specifically in the frequency triad, which some of this I'm just going to end up spitting out because my notes are a little scribbly. So as I was touching before, these numbers reflect 1 through 12, reflect the 12 dimensions. That's why we stop our clock at 12. I'm going to get into that. And if you ever watched Justice League, they actually make a reference to this. There's one scene when Lex Luthor had to go through some crazy cosmic test. And the administrator looks at him and goes, "You're going to need a 12th level intellect to get through this." He's like, "Oh, haha, I'm overqualified." Well, the test kicked his ass, but he did it. He did it. So then that's where you get 1, 2, 3, 4, And then the actual, doesn't necessarily have to be angelic meanings, but the angelic meanings tend to reflect this. 1, unity. 2, duality balance. 3, creation and expression. 4, structure and foundation. 5, change and freedom. 6, love and alignment. 7, wisdom, inner knowledge. 8, power, material mastery. 9, completion or release of the cycle. So that is where 369 rolls in. But then you're like, well, then why doesn't it just stop at 9? Well, because then you hit 10, which ends up being the renew over new cycle. Once you move through those dimensions, you kind of hit a new level. And then 11 is spiritual awakening, and 12 is ascension. So if you follow that, you don't necessarily have to do the 369. Whenever I do magic, I practice magic, I draw circles, I use all the numbers. It's because I want that spell to reflect the specific meanings. So if I want 5 crystals, or that's why people tend to use the pentagram as a divination tool for magic, whether it be Satanism or good magic, whatever, because the pentagram itself is meant for specific reasons. I can't touch base on too much because there's so much integrated, but that's why sacred geometry holds energy. In fact, as you can see from my poorly drawn clock, it's kind of egg-shaped. That's okay. If you actually continued that pattern that you see I started drawing, you can follow the triad frequency pattern, as I was saying earlier. And if you do that across the entire, are you ready, analog clock, our analog clock, it actually forms a shape called the grid of life. Crazy, isn't it? You're going to sit there and tell me our clocks, which originally had a face with 12 numbers on it, until we moved into the digital era, was based off sacred geometry, 4th dimensional concepts. Time was invented using the 4th dimension. Time. I say it with quotations because obviously time doesn't exist, but, well, again, separate video. So this concept of time was created from the 4th dimension. It's a 4th dimensional concept. That's why they consider time to be the 4th dimension. I don't know how completely true that is. Because again, as we can see, time was constructed. Time did not exist. Time is a construct, whether it be of people or sacred geometry or whatever. It does exist, but it doesn't exist. And that's why it's malleable. It's because it's just energy. You can manipulate time. That's, once again, a whole nother video. I'm getting off topic here. But then we go into vortex math. How does that tie into it? Well, if you go Let me actually find. I had to write down the exact definition, or a definition. Vortex math is pattern system based on how numbers behave when you reduce them to a single digit and the patterns they form. Now I don't know exactly how this ties into it, but I know in one of my spiritual books, at the end there's actually a chapter in which you're supposed to be able to determine your life path to kind of help you find your purpose. And it's like, well, you take this number and this number and this number of your human life. You do this, you plug it into this equation, and then you add it all up, like this, 1 plus 2 is 3. So, everything kind of leads back to that cycle. That's what vortex math is. Vortex math is the understanding of this cycle repeating on itself. That snake, the Ouroboros, the cycle closes and loops back in on itself. So even though you hit 12, well, then you use vortex math and 12 lead back to 3. Like, I really hope this is making sense, because I know the words that are coming out of my mouth may not be completely coherent. Especially since most of this I kind of had to figure out on my own. So you could technically do, like I was saying earlier, Nikola, I'm gonna call him Nikola. Nicky, we'll call him Nicky, just to make my life easier. Nicky would go, like I said, and enter buildings only after he circled it 3 times. Now he specifically picked 369. Now again, whenever I talk about magic, I do it in whatever number I feel is suited. But, as we have discovered, 3 is the signature frequency of the dimension. So using that baseline helps facilitate the energy. Basically, if it's already there, tapping into it is what helps. Is basically what you're doing. He didn't create something new. It's something he discovered. It was already there. However, the reason those 3 numbers work specifically... Are you ready? Jeez. Oh, channeling this energy, I'm starting to roast. It's freezing this morning. Alright, picking back up. So if you go back into the angel numbers, 3 starts with creation, expression. 6 is amplification, emotion, energy, universe moves in your favor. 9, complete release and trust, the closing of the pattern. The rise, the peak, the fall, the rest, and then go back. Okay? But the reason that simply just doing 3s is not sufficient, because again, you could do, what's the point of crescendoing, is my point. What's the point of having to escalate it? Well, if you sit on 3, that's fine. Because there are things I actually do in patterns of 3. I buy stuff in patterns of 3. Other things, other habits, but that's where I stop. I stop at the 3. I don't know why. I just do. But moving it up to 6, again, that's great. Using 3, it's staying at a constant flow. But in order to truly gain momentum and gain, you have to amp it up. As we notice, let's say sound. Sounds work in decimals or decibels. Decibels? Decimals. Anyways, basically, just like pi or sound waves, you crank it up, that magnifies the decimals, the energy, and guess what? It gets louder. Plain and simple. It's just plain and simple. You crank up the energy, you get more results. That's all it is. So, sure, you can set it to 3 and just leave it, but there's more dial to turn. So, keep going. I actually thought there was a lot more than this. It took me a lot longer to write this. So once again, you don't even have to use the 369. It's just the most basic form. Again, there are other triads. In fact, I am using it. Other frequency triads, as you can see. We put it on the clock. You could technically connect 1, 3, and 5. Any frequency you desire aligns with whatever your desire is. Or basically use the numbers to align it to your desire. So if 369 doesn't work for you and you want a specific, it's the same thing as, basically, it's an algorithmic formula. You don't have to use 369. You can plug in whatever frequency is off that triad you want. You can do it based off of whatever direction you want the energy to flow. It's just, again, 369 is one of the most solid, I guess if you had to say, algorithms. What else you got for me? And again, kind of going into why this works. Well, you ready for this? Guitar. You have a guitar. And then you've got 6 strings. Okay, just follow with me. You get 6 strings. And then each string gets tuned to a specific frequency. Okay? And in order to do that, you've got these tuning forks. Well, that's what they used to have. They used to have a tuning fork that held a specific frequency. You knock it, you listen to it, and then you tune the guitar accordingly. You match the guitar to match the frequency of the tuning fork, because playing these chords or these notes or frequencies in, wow, I just had the word, started with a C, correlation, that's not the word, whatever, you play them together, it makes a harmonic frequency. I can't. Again, just keeps looping in a pattern. So now you got this guitar, and you play it, and it sounds beautiful, and you can actually tell when it gets misaligned. After playing a certain amount of time, you can be like, ugh, the guitar's out of tune. But it sounds gross. Gotta go back and retune it, realign it. Where was I going with this? But as you've noticed, stuff like that. The 6 number was represented in a guitar. I mean, I don't know, it just boggles my mind, because it's so obvious. I'm surprised I missed it for so long, kind of thing, you know? So essentially, what Nikola Tesla was doing was he was striking the tuning fork. That's where it comes back. That's how it comes back. He was striking the tuning fork, or the guitar string of the universe. By initiating this pattern, he strikes a chord. And then the universe just kind of aligns to that frequency. Because in that point, sure, the universe has its natural flow and ebb and does its own thing, but what he did was essentially, he realigned it. He's just like, bing, I'm going to hit a specific frequency and cause the reality around me to align based on my intentions. Because intentions are strong. You can align stuff with just intentions alone. But it's not as coherent or cohesive, or it's not as strong, basically. It's just not as strong as it would be. Because again, it's one of those things, well, you can have a formula with X and Y, but you also need Z, kind of thing. And if you take Z out of the equation, well, it's a different equation. Just plain and simple. There is laws to the universe. You don't have to break them. You can bend them, though. That is why time is malleable. I might actually have to go into a video on how to do that. Because then that gets really crazy. Then you're changing your own energetic frequency. And because sometimes, guess what? Purposely misaligning can also be powerful. You know, it's everyone thinks of just in positive energy. You can also use negative energy in a positive manner. That is completely possible. Because again, you can't just always be on the top of the crest. You have to dip. Ebb and flow. It just happens. Can't always be on a crest. Gotta go through a trough sometimes. But that is also understanding the frequencies. Because then again, I want to say you're tipping the scale, but I don't feel like this is tipping the scale. I don't feel like it's like magic where you're actually influencing cosmic things and you're tipping the scale of good and evil. Nah, this is just attuning your reality like a guitar. That's all it is. You're tuning your reality like a guitar. That's the best analogy I can come up with. Again, it's as plain and simple as, well, this universe works x plus y plus z equals infinity. So if I'm going to use that algorithm, then I'm going to change the value of z. We'll see what happens. That's basically what he does. Or did. He actually awoke to this math, to this pattern, to this, and because of that, he was able to invent some freaking crazy things. Crazy things. That the universe itself, the world's just like, you're not supposed to know how to do that. Because as I was saying before, now we're going to get into the conspiracy side of it. The people who run our world are obviously very aware of this. That is why we have analog clocks. We didn't have that before. We had sundials. But again, it's like, where do you get those numbers from? Why do you stop at 12? Well, that's because there's 12 dimensions. So the people running our world know this and use it against us. Bastards. So, learning this actually breaks the chain and creates a new cycle. In fact, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself and how I realized it in my own life. You know that vortex math we were talking about? Well, we're going to add together my apartment number. My apartment number is 16220. You add that together, you get 11. 11 is my life path. I did the math myself. My life path is 11. Or one of them. So, it's a thing. It's a real thing. It exists. So, hopefully this helped. I'm trying to see if there's any more information that wants to come out. Honestly, I thought this video was going to be a little bit longer. That's fine. Let's see. Nope, I'm just going to sit here and keep roasting. I'm done channeling, but I'm still roasting. I don't get that. Now, I'm not saying go super crazy and start doing everything in patterns, because like I said, I do buy items in threes. I don't know why. I just do. But the biggest thing is using your intention. As I was kind of saying before, just like magic, a big part of it's your intentions too. If I simply just knocked on a door 3 times and didn't have any intentions as to why, well, it does something. It still does something weird, but it doesn't necessarily trigger in the way you're hoping. Because your intentions also have to be imbued in whatever you do. So say, for instance, maybe walking around the building one day, he was trying to manifest a specific item. I'll talk about this in another video, but I've actually used certain stores to manifest items. Items I need. Items I want. Like my green screen. I manifested it. So it could have very well been like, he walks around the building 3 times. He's like, alright, as I'm doing this, I'm going to walk in the store and I'm going to find the perfect gift. Or find something that inspires me. Or so if you're going to invoke these patterns, have intentions. When I drew my magic circle, in fact, let me go get it. Again, take everything I say with a grain of salt. I actually can't prove any of this. It's just something that came to me. But when I draw a magic circle, okay, so there's 3 circles, and then in those 3 circles, there's 3 more circles. So it's 3, 6, 9, 12. Wait, 3 times 4, yeah, it's 12. I ended up adding it up to 12. Why? And this is supposed to be a divination for protection. So my intention when I drew this was to create a solid foundation of flowing energy that protects. Okay? You don't have to use it in that method, but that is just an example. An example on how the numbers can be used, or so on and so forth. I think that's truly it. I don't think I have anything else to add to it. Like I said, whether this is true or not, I can't really prove it. I just wanted to do a more in-depth video, because I don't see anyone else doing it. When I tried to research it myself, it wasn't there. Whether or not it's true or not, and it's actually valid, it's something to make you think, at least. Make you consider it. Do your own research. Draw your own conclusions. See what you come to. This is something I've witnessed in my own life. Because then get this. I don't know if you guys remember this, and I'm not saying do it. Because again, the FBI will come and kick down your door. But, think of it this way. There's that one guy who, I think it was California, I'm totally going to butcher this. I briefly saw it somewhere on the internet. But this guy took 2 Bluetooth speakers and sunk up 2 harmonic frequencies, and it actually ripped a hole in our dimension. It actually created a portal. So, once again, there is some validity behind this. The numbers make sense. It's just we don't think about it. So, yeah. Have a great day.